All right, everyone. I would like to welcome you now to the New Beginnings podcast with Jay Jackson. I am your host. I'm Jermaine Jackson, and we are in our celebration of excellence episode as part of the podcast. As you always know, I need y'all to go to that YouTube, like, follow, subscribe, the New Beginnings podcast with Jay Jackson. Also go to your Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts. Sometimes you're my Facebook friend and stuff like that. You can see the preview of these interviews, my teachings, all this stuff on my Facebook. But if y'all don't mind, we're going to get into it today. I have a very special guest, a young lady that I went to high school with back in the days. We repping Rich East to the fullest.
That's right.
Even though it's non-existent now,
I
hurts my heart.
know. I know. It's so sad.
But she has done me the gracious pleasure of being my special guest on today. And we are going to talk to her about her life, her success, different things. As we go through life, we grow up together, we see people, and a lot of us are connected through social media. But I'm a person that when I see posts, I read things, see pictures, people found all the stuff, I always take a deeper look. And if you really pay attention to people and they posts, you can learn a lot about them. Send them a message or something in the inbox, talk to them. And so I've paid attention to this young lady's life, what she's doing, what she got going on, and we're just going to allow her to tell her story, because that's what the celebration of excellence is about. It's a celebration of people, their successes, things they overcome, their businesses, what they have going on in life. That is the purpose of this interview. And not only do not I know her, as you see this interview going on, many of you may know her, and maybe you don't know her story, but we're going to talk about her story today. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself. That's why I haven't said your name yet. So I want you to think, why he ain't said her name yet? But please introduce yourself to everyone here on the podcast.
My name is Cortney Henderson, formerly Cortney Varnado, for those of you who know me from Rich East or my life prior to my marriage. But I go by Cortney Henderson now. So
wonderful. Hey, Cortney.
Hi, Jermaine.
All right. So this young lady, I said we were both Rich East alum. I remember she was a former cheerleader.
Yes.
Stuff like that. She was very active in school, very bubbly, bright personality. I believe that she still is, even to her adult years. We are now, about a good almost 23 years removed from high school.
Yeah.
Man, so we getting up there.
It's been a while, man. Class of 2000.
Absolutely. So, Cortney, we're here to talk about you. So if you could just, as you've introduced yourself, your name, people know what your name is now. I just want to ask, let's talk about you just growing up in the South suburbs. Did you always grow up in the South suburbs? Some people I found out started in the city and they came to the suburbs, back and forth. Just if you will allow us to take a little bit into your childhood and your life, just let us know a little bit about you growing up.
Sure. So I am originally a Chicago girl from the South Side. My dad's from the West Side, but I'm originally from the South Side. I spent a lot of time in my younger years on the South Side at my grandmother's house. She lived on 104th and Perry. So right across the way from Cone Elementary School. My grandma had the house on the corner, the little red house there. And I spent a lot of time there. And then my parents were able to finally buy a house out in Park Forest. And so I moved to Park Forest in fourth or fifth grade. I can't remember. It might have been fourth grade. And so I started my elementary years in the South suburbs at, what is it? Was it Mohawk? Is that the name of that school? I think it was Mohawk.
Yeah, there was Mohawk and Blackhawk, depending on where you lived at.
Yeah, so I went to Mohawk, and then I went to Forest Trail. I think we met at Forest Trail, not at East. I'm pretty sure we went to junior high together too. Yes, so then I kind of matriculated through the school system there, and then ended up at Rich East, and then on to my undergrad years in Ohio.
All right. So even though you were fourth grade when you moved, was it a shock to you going from the city to the suburbs? Was that at that age, did you notice the difference, or just like, I'm just moving, I'm a kid, it's whatever my parents say, that's what I'm gonna do?
Yeah, it was more the latter. So we moved around a lot when I was younger, quite a bit. And so it was just a move to me, but it was a little bit different because it was a lot more grass and yard space. And like, I wasn't used to like having a big yard and like, being able to actually like play outside and stuff. So it was a little bit different, but for the most part, it was just a new place to live because I had moved around quite a bit when I was younger. So.
That's one of the best contrasts I've ever heard between the city and suburb. There's a lot more grass, my own yard. Not saying they don't have that in the city, but
But you know,
looks a little
it's
different
such
up there.
tight living. You know, it was a little bit more spread out, and it gave us an opportunity to have our own rooms and, like I said, you know, yard space. We had a big backyard in Park Forest, so we enjoyed having a little bit more space to play when we moved out there.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And so now you say you went from Mohawk Forest Trail to Ritchie's. And one of the, I guess, wonderful things about you is that you actually graduated early
I
out
did.
of East. And I want to ask, what led you to that decision? Because I know when I was faced with that decision, I had an opportunity to graduate a semester early and start college. I elected to just stay in school. I just wanted to finish out the year in school, and
Yeah.
certain things I was involved in, sports, snowball, just to name a few. I
Yeah.
wanted just to finish out the year strong with those things. I just felt I wasn't ready just to start out in college yet, because I had more credits than what I needed, so I could easily graduate. Why did you make that decision? Was it solely your decision, or was it something that your parents maybe instilled, maybe offered you something? What led you to that decision to graduate high school early?
It was all on me. One of the things I will say I am very fortunate for, from my parents, is that they've always allowed me the autonomy to move kind of how I please in my education. And so when I expressed interest in graduating early, I don't know, maybe my sophomore or junior year, I don't even remember now. They were all for it. And again, like you said, you had opportunities to get extra credits. So I took early bird. So I took like gym during the morning hours, and then that opened up another hour in my day for classes. So I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to graduate a semester early. But um, I don't know. I think I was just I've always been kind of mature, and I was really just ready to move on and kind of see what life was about in college. And I was a very young 17. So I turned 17 in September. I graduated in December and went to school in January. So I was the youngest person on campus, and that was a little different. It was you know, you think you're mature and you're ready for something, and then when you get into that season, it's like, oh, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not, you know. So I was a little nervous because I was the youngest person on campus, and everybody knew it. So it was an adjustment that I had to make when I got there. But I'm glad that I did it. You know, I saw an opportunity, and I thought it would be good for me, and it actually ended up being very good for me, just to kind of start my young adult life a little bit earlier. But the only thing that I will say that I wish would have been different was that when I came back for like prom and graduation, everybody was like, life had moved on, right? So even
Mm-hmm.
my friend groups, they had their own new like inside jokes that I really wasn't a part of, and like there were all these things that were happening that I just wasn't privy to because I was gone for 6 months. So it was kind of hard coming back to prom and graduation, and assimilating myself back into that group because I had just been so far removed from it. So I kind of felt out of place. But it's all love. I mean, you know, my people still accepted me just like they did before I left. So it was all love. But it was a great experience, though. It was.
Wow, you actually came back for that stuff. If I would have left, ain't no way I would have came back. I just stay gone. That's why I just stayed in school and got through with it. 'Cause I knew if I would have went away, I'm like, I ain't coming back. Because I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get away, new surroundings. But the
Yeah.
fact that you came back and still participate in certain things, that's very commendable. Even you graduating early, that means you're one of the smart kids, to graduate early and got it. What
I did all right. I was about just above average as a student, but I was smart in that I took advantage of the system. So they offered us the opportunity to take the extra class, and I did that. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was smart in that regard, but I was an average student though.
Well, I was trying to give you some accolades, trying to hype you up a little bit,
Thank you,
and
sir. Thank you, sir.
but I thank you for that part of your story, because you see that more prevalent in schools now, where they do like the dual credits, giving
Yes.
kids opportunities to go into college as sophomores,
Right.
take on certain trades and things while they're in school, can get their CNA license and all this stuff.
Right.
So thinking back to high school when that type of stuff was starting, it's good to see it now, because everybody may not do college. Somebody might want to do a trade. They might want to do this, just get their associates, and
Hmm.
they're providing children with these opportunities, more options. Where we had options in our day, but it's not to the point of what it is now
Yeah.
for these children. There's so many opportunities for you to, after high school, a lot of kids are wondering it's either college or work, but the field is way more open now
Oh yeah.
for kids. It's just about what opportunity. So I commend you for taking that leap and doing that, because you didn't hear about a lot of kids doing that. It was pretty much,
Not
well, let me
then.
finish up high school and just work and go to
Yeah.
college. You took advantage of something that was not the norm back in our day, but now it's becoming more normalized for kids to do. They go into school. Like I was at my daughter's 8th grade graduate, just hearing kids saying, like, they got their whole life mapped out in 8th grade. In 8th grade, I did not know everything I want to do. I didn't have a college pick. I didn't have my major pick,
Yeah.
but those doors have opened so much for our children. I think it's a great thing that it's open. But thank you for being one of the first to take that step out in life and lead to what is now, what we have seen abnormal back then is now normal now.
Yeah.
And so as you took that jump, you are a alum of Wilberforce University, which is an
Yes.
HBCU. Why
Yes.
did you choose Wilberforce? Was that your only choice, or did you have a lot of colleges lined up when you were getting ready to graduate early?
It's a great question. So I was actually set to attend Illinois Wesleyan University. I had visited that school probably 5 or 6 times. I had done like 2 overnights. I had done a couple of like daytime campus visits, and my dad took me so many times up there, and I was set to go. And at the last minute, in my heart, I knew I always wanted to attend an HBCU, but I was under the impression that I had to go to like Clark or Spelman.
Mm-hmm.
And Atlanta was so far away. And I was, again, 17, a fresh 17-year-old. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle being that far away from home at this age. So I kind of given up on the idea of going to the HBCU. And then I, was looking to go to Illinois Wesleyan. And I don't know how or why I ended up going to this college fair maybe in like November or December of our senior year. I don't even know where it was, but I came across this table, Wilberforce University, and they said that they were an HBCU in the Midwest. And I'm like, HBCUs in the Midwest? What?
Right.
What? Never. So I learned that there are actually two, three if you include Kentucky State, which is in Kentucky, obviously, but that's maybe considered South. But there are two HBCUs in the Midwest in Ohio. Wilberforce University, founded in 1856, which is where I went. And then
Mm-hmm.
there is the other school down the street called Central State. There are rivals. They're literally across the street from Wilberforce campus. But
Time out. Did you quick pause? Not to,
yeah,
I guess I'm interrupting. The other school? Why is it gonna be like that?
because that's our rival and that's
I
who
mean,
they
I,
are.
I
The
mean,
other
I get
school
it.
down the street.
I mean, going with your story, I'm just saying. I just caught that, like, the other schools,
You caught it.
like
Yep,
they
you
didn't
caught it.
matter.
You caught the shade. There's shade there. There's definitely some shade there. But
Got
it's
you.
all love in HBCU land. It really is. But they are our rivals, so boo to them. But but yeah, so I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. And when I found out about Wilberforce, that was the only school I applied to. I do not recommend that to any high school students. Let me put a disclaimer out there. They were the only school I applied to, but I was so excited that I could go to an HBCU and still be close to home. And so I got my acceptance letter back, and I was excited to go. I did lose both of my grandmothers in December that I graduated high school. And so that was really, really
Wow.
difficult. Like within 2 weeks, both of my grandmothers passed away. And so I was set to go to school. Like I got back from the second funeral, and then that following week I went to school. So it was a big transition for me, again, being 17, being away from home. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Being away from home, and then being in that state of grief. It was my first semester was very, very difficult.
Right.
um but I persevered. I mean, I ended up coming around to really leading a really full collegiate life. But bottom line is, I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU, and I was very, very excited to hear about Wilberforce being so close. So it kind of saved me, because who knows where I would have been or what I would have been doing had I not gone there. But yeah.
And that's amazing. My condolences. I know it's years down the road about your grandmothers, but I'm always drawn to people. We all have faced our losses in life, loved ones, and it's very interesting when it happens at certain times in our lives when we need those people the most.
Oh,
And
yes.
some people cannot move on from that. They will use that as a reason as to why I couldn't succeed, why I couldn't overcome, why I couldn't
Right.
complete this, because dad died, mom died, grandma, grandpa died. They were this and that to me. But what I've learned, losing my mother at 30, lost my
Mm,
grandmother, the pivotal time in my life, is that because of what they were to me, I have to continue to move forward. I have to
absolutely.
succeed because if they were here, they would be pushing me, encouraging me. So yeah, it hurts. Sometimes that
Hmm.
you learn the process to deal with it, and those that we have lost, we miss them all the time,
Oh, yeah.
and we wish we could have them back. But the best way to honor their memory and their life, their legacy that's living through us now, is to continue to move forward. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that with us because I love hearing that, and somebody
Oh,
else
yeah.
needs to hear that and know that even when I lose someone that was so close, you both your grandmas in 2 weeks, then I got to start school. I'm 17. Most
Right.
people would have shut it down. I ain't
Yeah,
going to
that would have been
college.
the end.
It's
Like,
like, yo, life. This,
and honestly, Jermaine, when I got to school, I was a shell of who, like you said, I was outgoing, I was like bubbly, I was involved in everything. When I got there, I just was a shell of myself. I listened to Sade every day, all day. Like Sade got me through grief, and I just needed to be sad. I just needed to sit in that moment, in that sadness, and just
hmm
experience it. That's just what I needed to do, and I did that for a whole semester. And I went to one party my first semester. My roommate used to beg me, no, thank you. I will sit in the room and cry. She used to come home from class and I have Sade on and she like, if you don't turn this music off, I'm like, no, I just want to be sad. Like the blinds are closed and all the lights are off and I just got Sade playing and I'm just in the bed crying. But that's what I needed to do. And people process grief differently. And as long as you're processing it in a way that's healthy and that, is allowing you to move forward, then it's okay. But that I just that's how I needed to process it at that time. And it took me a semester, but I was able to come out of it and I was better for it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I appreciate you for sharing that with us. I tell everybody grief is a process.
Absolutely.
We all have to find our way to deal with it because
Yep.
we're all going to go through it at some point in our lives. And whatever that is, you can't tell somebody how long they're supposed to grieve.
Right.
Oh, get over it. That's one of the worst things. I had to learn that personally in my life. You don't tell people to get over stuff because you don't know what that person or persons meant to them. So
Right.
it takes time, what they meant and what they had to do for them in their lives. So yeah, we got to be
Hmm.
very cautious with that when somebody
Hmm.
is grieving. Just give them that time to process, and then you're going to have grief moments where you think you all right. Some can come remind you of that person.
Yes.
It's like it happens all over again. So
Yep.
we're going to have grieving moments. So that's just a process that can carry on through time. But you are definitely a proof that you can move on, you can succeed, you can overcome. And as we're talking about you being an overcomer and working through adversity, and talking to you, one of the most alarming things that I found out about you is that you post a lot about your oldest son.
Hmm.
Very nice looking young man. He's in
Thank
college
you.
right now. I think one of the things that had me follow so strong, he was in high school playing football.
Hmm.
A very talented young gentleman. I was like, and she got something right there. This kid got talent. I didn't know if he was going how far he wanted to go with it, but I'm always attracted to the kids that are athletes because my son's an athlete. So that just
Yes.
automatically, I'm on board. I will look your kid up, research him because
Yes.
I just love the sports. And as we spoke, found out that you said at the age of 20,
Mm.
you found out you were pregnant with your son.
Yes.
So now I don't know, was you out of college at 20?
No, I was
No,
very much in college.
in college, 20. And
Very much in
I
college. I was actually
had
19. I was 19 when I got pregnant. I was 20 when I gave birth. So
oh,
yeah.
okay. So when I found that out, I thought it was I love these stories. The reason why I've known people that said I couldn't finish college or couldn't even go because I got a baby.
Mm,
But going to the college I went to, I met people that had kids and went through school, worked while they were in college, got through. And I know that's not easy because you have this
Yeah.
life you have to provide for, not just provisional care, but I got to talk to you, nurture you, especially mamas. Y'all are different with y'all babies, but yet I'm 20. I got to study. Mama got to have a life too. Mama want to party
Yeah.
and do things.
Yeah.
And ma'am, if you could just share with us that experience and how you overcame, how you, I don't even want to call it balance. How did you
Mm.
navigate through all of that? Because for the people that say I couldn't do it, I don't want to give my opinion on that because I got like, listen, you be surprised you can overcome when you try. But the
Yeah.
ones that I have seen do it, I admire them so much because when my daughter came, I graduated. So I found out when I was 21 when I
Mm.
found out she was on the way, and she came August after I graduated college. So I was
Okay.
done because I don't know.
Yes.
I almost quit school. When I found out that I had a baby on the way, I was going to quit. I was in my second semester. It was about March of my senior year. And I said, I'm going to quit school and just go.
Ooh,
And my mama, God
I
rest her
know she
soul, was
would have
like,
been hot with you.
my mama said, you better not quit school. You better
Better
pray
not.
and finish your degree. She said, boy, you months away. Well, mama, I got a
Yeah.
baby on the way. I need to come home, work, save money. I ain't got no bread saved up. You better finish school. And
Finish school.
I'm glad I listened. Mama knew best at that point, and I'm
Absolutely.
grateful I listened. I'm a better person for it. I'm glad I listened. But you were in school when this
Yeah.
happened, so man, please take us through that and how you were able to just navigate through that. Because I at 20, ain't no way I could have done it. Ain't no way. Me at 20, I just knew I couldn't have handled that. I had enough going on. How did you do it? Because looking at the product of what you've done, and you got two other beautiful children, but I see all that your son has achieved.
Yeah.
And for you to be a young mother and to raise him up to be the man that he is now, it started when you yourself, some would say you were even a baby still at
A
that
baby.
time in your life.
Absolutely. Very
So yes,
much.
please, by all means, if you could share with us that story of your life.
Yeah. So honestly, Jermaine, all thanks be to God. There it was not easy. I was a cheerleader at Wilberforce as well. So um after my first semester, that second semester when I came back in the fall, was that the fall? Yes, when I came back in the fall, tried out for cheerleading, make cheerleading team, started getting to know everybody and really opening up and being a real college student. So I was really enjoying myself and met a guy, ended up getting pregnant. But I knew that I was going to take on the task of being a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I decided that literally in my head, I told myself, I don't want anybody to be able to tell that my son is raised by a single mother. So my mission was to raise him in a way that he would have a full life, as full of a life as possible that I could give him, and just to instill the things in him that I knew that he would need. But I wanted him to really. I didn't want him to have any gaps,
Mm-hmm.
and so that became my mission. Regardless of what happened with me and his dad, that was the mission, to make sure that he was raised and that you could not tell he was raised by a single mom. And
Wow.
so that that moment was rough. My mom was upset with me. My mom was a pastor at that point, and she was very upset with me, and disappointed a lot of people in my life. But it was what it was. And so took a semester off when I came home to give birth. I stayed home that semester and just tried to learn how to be a mom and learn from my mother and the other women in my life who were willing to help me and wrap their arms around me. And took my son back with me after that semester. And that was where it really got to be a challenge, because now I had to, they had family apartments on campus. So I was able to secure one of those apartments, thankfully. But I had to be able to get to and from campus. I had to be able to get him enrolled in daycare and get him to daycare and still maintain my studies and still, cook and make sure he had something to eat and all of those things. So that's where it just kind of, I don't know, like I guess the maternal instinct kind of kicked in, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just about figuring out what the resources were that were available to me and taking advantage of those things so I could achieve my goal. Because I knew I did not want to leave school. I was going to bring him back with me. I was just going to have to figure it out. And I remember when I was packing the car up, I was getting ready to pack up the car to come back to school. And my parents, at this point, they just been loving on my baby all this time. And so they were like, well, we talked about it and we were just gonna let you know that if you wanted him to stay here, he can stay with us until, you graduate. And I looked at them like,
Mm-hmm.
no, like I'm taking him back. And they were like, whoo, thank goodness. But, they were willing to help. The help that they gave me that first semester really, really was paramount in how I was able to go back and pivot to be on campus with my son. But he changed my life. He gave me a real purpose and a real passion for finishing that space. But it was very difficult. There were times where I had to, of course, miss class because he was sick, or I had to take
Mm-hmm.
him with me to exams. I had teachers who told me I could not bring him in class, so I had to have somebody in the hallway. I know that sounds really irresponsible, but you get to know people on campus who love your baby, and they'll take them for 30 minutes while you do a test and pass them off to somebody else when they got a class. And people who you begin to trust, these people that you live and grow up
Mm-hmm.
with. So other just resources, these were my friends and my family at Wilberforce, and they looked out for me. They looked out for him. And so I was able to finish my undergrad. My last semester, he was 2. I had 7 classes. I had 21 hours. I made Dean's List. I was not playing that last semester. I
Man.
had to finish and get out and start making money and start taking care of him. So he just became my motivation. And I just started using all the resources that I could find to give us what we needed. And through God and the help of my family, we were able to do it, and we did it together. We grew up together, and now he'll be a junior at an HBCU. He goes to University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. He is
Mm-hmm.
an animal science major. He wants to be a zoologist. He just walked onto the football team last spring. So we're looking for some great things from him as he matriculates through his collegiate life here and there in Arkansas. So
You just
yeah.
made me like your son that much more. Because I majored in biology.
Did you?
Yeah, so you talking about zoology. I took zoology as a class. That's science. Oh, that's my
Oh,
stuff right there.
wow.
So yeah, so and then he brought me back to playing football. Now I'm more excited.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. He's very athletic. So I'm very proud of him. I'm really, really proud of him. He's still got a lot of growing up to do. He'll be 21 in December. He's still got some stuff that he's got to do. But I mean, just looking at, the life that he's lived based on the life that I've lived. And thankfully, I have to attribute, a lot of his success to my husband. I met my husband. Well, I met my husband in undergrad, but he and I started dating when my son was uh, maybe 2.5 or 3, and he raised my son. He did.
mm-hmm.
He really raised him as his own, and then we had 2 more kids together. And he's always been a staple in my son's life, and so I'm so grateful to him for accepting him with me, because that was a requirement. Like, you want to be with me, you got to take the kid, and he took the challenge. So again, between God and my family and my support system, and of course my husband coming along, we were able to really accomplish a lot with him. So I'm very proud of him.
And I definitely appreciate you for saying that because I want to give a shout out to all the men and women that go into marriages and relationships, providing for children that are not biologically yours. Because I
Yes.
tell my kids all the time, it's a choice.
Oh,
Every
absolutely.
parent, even your biological children, you got to choose to provide and take care of them. Because we know the
Yep.
stories of people that choose not to do it.
Choose
And
not
some
to.
people say, well,
Absolutely.
how could you not provide for your kid? It's a choice. It's you don't have to.
You
And
don't have to.
it's one thing to love on what's yours, what you produce, what came out of you, what it looks
Right.
like me, it act like me. But to take on somebody else's child where you don't have no basis on how that relates to you,
Yes.
but all you see is that they need a dad, they need a mom,
Right.
and I'm going to step in and do my best to raise them up to be something better than what I am in this life and give them every opportunity that's just a blessing. So I know that
Yeah.
personally. That's why I go so hard. So I appreciate you saying that. I want to show love to
Mhm.
everybody that has to do that, because that's a big responsibility to take on, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And and with you persevering through all of that, and you have your oldest son, your other two children, and I'm sure they know bits and pieces or all of your story, depending on what you share with them, and especially the oldest one. How do you think your children look at you? Are they ever motivated because they know what mom went through? Mom finished her degree with a kid and did all of this. You could be one of them mamas like, listen, I can't take none of your excuses because of what I had to go through. But how do your children look at you? Do they ever find motivation or admiration from you, knowing that at such a young age and time, like you said, 21 hours? I had one semester, I had to do 20 hours my senior year. But let me stop tripping. You had 21 hours plus a baby. So I'm gonna throw my complaints out about my 20-hour semester because I didn't have a baby with me on campus. But to me, I feel I know I'm not your child, but if I was your kid, I'd be like, man, mom really grinded and mom did this, mom succeeded, got out. So I can't, there's no excuses for me. That's
Yeah.
my motivation. That's my mark. How do your children look at you knowing what you went through it and overcame to be who you are as a mother, as a woman, as a professional? How do they look at you?
That's a great question. My oldest is probably the one who would attest most of what you're saying. Um, my two younger ones, by the time they came, I wouldn't say I was already established, but I was already had some traction, right? So I
Hmm.
was already kind of in motion to getting some things going. And again, my husband and I were already married, and he had his own thing going with his barbering and stuff. So we were in a different place. But my oldest son, I would say, probably is the one who would say he finds most motivation and stuff from me because, and I and listen, I don't accept a lot of excuses and a lot of foolishness from them because
Right.
have been there and I have seen it and I do know what's out there and how you can maneuver. Um, and of course, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a moment, but in being in the school system, you're not going to pull a fast one over on me. I expect greatness out of my kids, not perfection, but I do expect them to be who we know them to be and who God intends for them to be. So there is a, there's some, they got some stuff to do. But I would say my oldest probably views me more as a motivator because we went through a lot together.
Hmm.
Um, the other two, I don't know how they would view me. My daughter, I don't know what that little girl would say. She's just, oh Lord. She's so free. I don't know. I have to reel her back in. My younger son probably would say I'm hard on him. But I'm still, because all your kids are unique, and so how they view you is going to be unique as well. But my middle child is very reserved and cautious, and so while I do still expect a lot out of him, I do challenge him to come out of that. So I'm always
Hmm.
finding opportunities for him to push himself into uncomfortable situations so that he can be greater and have more exposure, to things in life. So he would probably say I'm harder on him because I make him do stuff that makes him uncomfortable. Um, but yeah, I hope that they all see me as motivation and an example of what to and what not to do.
Wonderful, absolutely, and thank you for, like you said, each kid is unique. Because you love all your kids the same, but you got to
Yeah.
sometimes treat them and deal with them differently because they're all not the same. So
Yes,
thank you for that. And as we're talking about the kids, you are a high school counselor.
I
I,
am.
I love getting everyone on here that are educators. I'm one of those parents. I'm very involved in my kids' school. I just became the vice president over the PTSO, not on purpose, but I was nominated. Oh man, I don't know if you
You was
clap your hands for
voluntold.
that, man. Pretty much. So, but my kids' schools know me because my thing is, don't mess with my child. You gonna see me. You gonna get an email. You gonna get a call. I get, who your boss? Superintendent. Put him on the phone. I done had the superintendent phone number. I don't mess around about my kids,
Yeah.
and I advocate for other children.
Right.
Oh, dad, my friend going through this. Oh, they are. Let me call that teacher. Hey, are you their parent? No, but I'm a parent. That's all that matters. Y'all not finna
Yeah.
talk crazy to these kids. So
Yeah.
you're the first one that I've had on this. I've had two principals on my show so far talking about education, but you are a counselor.
I am.
And I would like to hear about your experience as a counselor because, like, I know in my kids' school, I can't stand any counselors. You got to look for them. They not involved. They're not engaged. I have two kids.
Yikes.
No, my blended family. My son and my bonus daughter are both seniors.
Mhm.
And I had to catch my son. Hey, my son finna graduate soon. What we doing for colleges and all this stuff? Are you having meetings with my son? My son didn't even know who his counselor was till I told him. Ain't it your job to seek out the kids for college and stuff? Oh, well, what had no answers for me. So I'm like, so when I found out you were a counselor, I'm like, well, let me see how Courtney do her thing because the ones I'm dealing with, pretty much, I'm gonna be the one helping my kid get in college because you all are
Mhm.
unreliable. And some of y'all that might hear this podcast, y'all know what school district I'm talking about. I put it on my Facebook. I don't give a care. You know, they got to get their stuff together. That's why I said making me the vice president might have been the wrong move because I'm finna be on them. But let me try to hear how you do your job as a counselor because I've had a horrible experience with
Yeah.
all of my kids that I've been in school, have not had good counselors. So please, maybe you can give me a better experience so I can tell them, hey, this is how counselors supposed to be doing their job.
Oh
So
my
please talk to us about your experience as a high school counselor.
Well, let me first say, I am not the standard. I don't want to make it seem like, you know, there are counselors who are much better than I am. There are counselors who are on the same level as I am, and there are some who don't do as much as I do. But um, so me as a counselor, it's a difficult job. It's a challenging job, but it's rewarding. But the reward often comes well after you have that student, on your caseload. Um,
Mm,
so my job is really, the way I view it is just to expose students to different opportunities and possibilities they have for their next. So, like we talked about earlier, whether that's 4-year college, 2-year college, trade school, military, workforce, what gap year, whatever it is that they want to do, to give them other ideas. So, okay, maybe you thought about only this, but there are also other things that you can do. And then once they decide for sure what it is they want to pursue, then how can I help them get to that point? But I'm very involved. So let me say this. The last 2 years I've worked exclusively with athletes at my school. So they've been the only students on my caseload.
mm-hmm,
Prior to that, I've had all students kind of mixed in. But I do have the largest caseload this year. I have over 400 students on my caseload. So when you're talking and that's somewhat typical. So when you're talking about counselors who are not responsive or who are disengaged, oftentimes it's because their caseloads are so large. And as we know, in this country, education is not uh, a sector where you're going to get six figures outside of being an administrator. You're not going to get six figures. Well, let me not say that, because there are some districts where you will. Chicago probably does pretty good, but it's not a money maker. So the numbers are oftentimes low for staff, and the number of students doesn't change. So however many kids are in that building is how many kids are in that building. Whether or not you have a full staff is whatever. But
mm-hmm,
so that could be why people say that their counselors are unresponsive, because they're overwhelmed. Now, having over 400 students, specifically athletes, really doesn't matter who's on my caseload. I'm involved with as many of them as I can be, but I can't know 400 kids. Like, I can't. I do my best to make contact with them all, whether it's in classroom guidance, or if I'm in the hallways passing or whatever, and I see somebody and I thought about something, I'm grabbing them or whatever. But it's hard to know every student on your caseload, your caseload. But I try my best to know as many of them as I can.
mm-hmm,
This is why I often tell students how important it is to know your counselor. So if you don't know who your counselor is, find out who they are, because we are a very important person in the building. I can help students to get into college. I can help students get scholarships. I can help students get internships, job
mm-hmm.
shadows. There are a lot of connections that we have, but if I don't know you, I don't even know what your interests are. So I try to pull students in as much as I can to get to know who they are. And that really comes from my training in the initial school I was in Ohio. It was a small early college. And so the expectation was that you know your students, you know their families, and you can, I knew off the top of my head where you want to go. I know where your mom and them went. I know, that was the expectation. So I've translated that to where I am now, which is a much larger school district. But it can be difficult. I want to be involved with my students. I want them to know who I am. And the ones who do know me, they call on me. And I still have students from my very first year in the profession who are now college graduates. Some have started their own families. Some of them have finished their master's degrees, and they still call me, whether it's for advice or whether it's just to catch up. When they come to Charlotte, they come see me. When I go to Ohio, I go see them. So that's what I mean when I say the reward comes far later than when they're in the building with you. But if you build those relationships, if you really do a good job of building those relationships, you can get the reward much later, if you keep that contact. But it's a challenging job, but I love my students. I absolutely love working with my students, and I cherish them. It's always an honor to be a part of their life for that split second of time, and hopefully impart some wisdom in them and impart some, just some golden nuggets that they can kind of take with them. And then in those moments where they need it, they can kind of recall those ideas and remember Miss Henderson said, she told me, so that's always the goal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So from what you said, I'm going to give the counselors a little more grace.
Please do.
This case, they got a big
they do try.
caseload.
They do try.
I'm gonna give them some grace, and thank you for talking about that impactfulness. I had one of my friends that I'm from college who was a principal, and he was telling me how his motivation to become a principal was because of an interaction he had with a teacher and what the teacher meant to him that led him into that. And so not just teachers, but counselors, anybody that's working in the educational system, your sacrifice is amazing because, like you said, the paycheck at times does not add up to what you all have to go through. But to know that the benefits later on, I was even able to share with that friend of mine doing the podcast. I didn't say his name. I'll say it now, so you both Rich East, Mr. Lawrence Cook. He impacted my life a lot more now. I couldn't stand him as a coach. He was always on my head. I had him for honors math 3 years in a row.
Yes.
He was just constantly on my case, man. But I remember when I got into college, I got an academic scholarship. I only could apply to one college. I was late on doing college stuff. And I came back, hey, man, I got a scholarship. He was like, man, that's probably affirmative action, which based on what the Supreme Court just ruled, they ruled that. Like, man, Cook, don't act like I'm out here like I ain't working hard, brother. I got good. I'm in the society.
Cook was known for talking crazy to people. If you watching this, Mr. Cook, I got something for you. That man was. I had him for math also. He was something else. He was my track coach too. He was something else, but he was a good guy. He was solid. Cook was a great teacher, and he was a good guy.
Absolutely. So, but I've been right before I graduated, because I used to always go to his classroom for like that 30, 45 minutes before sports started. We could like do like a after school study hall.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, man, I was never worried about you. I said, what does that mean? He was like, on the field in football, I was on you because I knew you could have been better. You just didn't try as much. You just out there. I mean, it was something to do. I didn't plan on going to the league or nothing. I just liked being out there. But he said, I never worried about you. I knew you was going to get in college. You was a good person, good student. He said, but I was just on you about certain stuff because there was more. There was more in you. And I always knew you was going to be all right. So all them years you rolled me was because I just knew you was going to be all right. You had a funny way, but I remember that. And I believe when I look at when I seen him some years ago in the area and just telling him stuff I had going on, he's like, man, I'm proud of you. I just knew you was going to be okay. But it's people like that that impact your life. And you remember later on, wow, like yourself, the Miss Hendersons, the Mr. Cooks, you could pinpoint this person, like you said, for that little bit of time was integral in my life for me being where I'm at today. And in that moment when you dealing with them, you like, I'm just ready to get out of high school, so I ain't never got to see you again. But now, if I see Mr. Cook around there, hey, man, what's up? I think one last time I saw him, he said, man, call me Lawrence. We both adults now. I said, in high school, I always wanted to call you Lawrence.
Oh, man.
But I still call him Mr. Cook. I was like, if I see him, how you doing, Mr. Cook? we ain't that far in age. I can't do it because I got that respect for you, man. I got that much
Yeah.
respect for you. So, but yeah, man. So I thank you for saying that because that's why the job of educators, counselors, social workers in the school system is so important
Yeah.
because you never know whose life you're changing. And so when you
Yeah.
hear that, even for you all, I know you're like, wow, I guess I am making a difference. Sometimes I look at you kids, I'd be like, am I even making an impact with y'all? But then you get those stories, you'd be like, okay, I can stick in a little bit long because I actually am making an impact. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that with us. That was very
Yes.
important. And I'm going to give counselors more grace because of what you said.
Thank
I'm
you. Thank
absolutely going
you.
to give them more grace. Absolutely. I'm going to take care of that. I got you. All right. As we're coming to the end of this interview, another thing I want to talk to you about is that you pledged to an org after grad.
I did.
I love to hear these stories because you have to make it make sense to me. Because hey, I'm with it. I like to hear about people orgs, what they're doing. My college, we didn't have any orgs and nothing like that. People tried to get me to play it after grad. I was like, I can't
No.
do it. I don't see the point of it. But I like to hear those that pledge after grad because you got work, families, kids, and stuff. Well, how you got time to be doing all that? What led you to making that decision after you're because that seems like the popular decision while we're in school. But I'm
Hmm.
out of college now. I'm living life. I'm working. I got things going on because those orgs, you have requirements. You have things you have to be at. Just stuff that I hear.
Yeah.
Through the grapevine. And what made you make that decision after I'm done with college, finished all of that, living my life? Now I'm finna pledge to this org.
Yeah. Well, much like my long-term desire to attend an HBCU, once I got there, I knew that I wanted to pledge or to join an organization called Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Z5. And and sometimes things just don't work out when you're in school. And so without going into great detail, um it just didn't happen for me during that time. But it was
Mm-hmm.
always something that I knew I wanted to still be a part of. And thankfully with Divine Nine organizations, you can still join after you are graduate after you graduated from undergrad. And so the work still continues. The community service still continues far after the undergrad years. And so joining a graduate chapter allows you to continue to do that community service and stay involved. But it also allows people who were not able to join in an undergraduate setting to join later. And oftentimes that work is more rewarding in that it's really heavily, it's not so much for show. You know what I mean? Like when you're an undergrad, it's you party and all that, you get your letters and all that, you having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that they're not doing great things on campus and in the community, because they are. But when you're out of that limelight and you're in an adult setting, a professional setting, it's still very much community service driven. And so that's why I still wanted to join, even after I got my degree. And so I was thankfully able to do that, and have now been with the organization since 2010. So it's been very rewarding. My father is in the fraternity that are our brothers. My mother is one of my sorors. I have an aunt
Oh.
that's a Zeta. I have a cousin that's SG Rose. So I got a cousin that's Alphas and stuff. So we got a whole, Divine Nine in the family. But that was just what spoke to me. And so I knew that I wanted to still do it even though I had graduated.
Well, it's all in the family now. That's
Yes, sir.
beautiful. I
Yes, sir.
like that. That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing because you have people out there, and I know a few of my associates, colleagues that did it after grad. Like I said, people I went to college with who was not able to pledge until they graduated or they went to other colleges once they transferred
Colleges.
out and
Right.
did it. As you know, we went to school with Rasul and he pledged after grad. And I
Yes,
asked him why he
Russell,
did.
look at
I said,
you.
"Why'd you do it?" He said, "Man, that stuff expensive. I couldn't afford it in college." He
That
said,
too.
I
That
said, "You
part.
know what?" I said, "You know what, brother?" Because he was
I
trying to
mean,
get
and
me.
he was a pharmacy student. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot to take on while you're trying to become a doctor. So, circumstances really can dictate how people move when it comes to joining D9. So I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, so I always like to hear people do, it, especially when families, because I said the young lady I used to work with that went to World before, like I said, some years after you, one of her biggest motivations she plays while she was in school is her dad exposed her. So you like to hear the different connections that people and reasons why they did it, whether in college,
Yeah.
after college, what was their motivation. And what you said was that community work continues. And
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest things I've learned about these different orgs, the community work that goes into it. I had one of my college roommate who's like a brother to me now. His daughter goes to Northern, and she's a part of an org that's not a part of the nine, but they created an org, her and some young ladies. So I've learned that. I didn't know this back when I was going to college. There are a lot of colleges you
Hmm.
can create orgs if you get people together, and it's all
Yes.
about serving the community, helping certain divisions, certain cultures, all
Right.
these different ethnic groups. I've learned so much because out of my daughter's in college, she goes to Illinois State. She's stuck on being a Delta at some point in her life. That's what she wants to be. I always tell her she should be an AKA. And
Oh
she say,
Lord.
why, Dad? I said, because you bougie as heck. You're bougie. And AKA, no disrespect, but all the AKAs I've made is just so sophisticated and proper and just so dignified. But they I
Oh.
like the deltas, Dad. They got a little edge to it. I said, girl, but you ain't got no edge. I know some deltas. So I always, when I hear these experiences, I try to share them with her also.
Yeah.
And she's trying to figure out if she's gonna do it while she's in school or you gonna do it after. Because I asked, she said, Dad, what if I do it in school? How much it costs? Why that's all you care about? Because I don't see you paying for it.
Right.
You're gonna be
You gotta
looking at
call
me.
home.
Right. So I don't want to pay for that because I'm not joining it. So what benefits do I get out of it? I'm not getting letters. I'm not getting colors. I'm not for what?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that, and to all the listeners out there that may hear this. If you got children or if you yourself are considering pledging after grad, because obviously there's no age limit either. Because
Right.
like I said, when Rasul did it, he was telling me about it. I was like, hey, bro, you're almost 40, man. What you talking about? It's all this stuff. You finna be dancing and doing all this stuff and jumping
And he
around.
is, and he does.
Yes, he does. Bless his heart. I'm 41.
I ain't doing all that no more.
Yeah, see,
Big
I
ups
ain't
to him.
messing
I'm
with
not
it.
doing all that. Mm-mm.
I can't do it. For the ones that can do it, I appreciate you. But my body and my limbs, I could do it, but I'll be hurting next day, and that's okay. I got to
Yeah,
get up and go to
I'm
work.
cool.
So yeah,
Mm-mm.
but thank you, man, for sharing that. And I think the last thing I just want to ask you, and you touched on a little bit. All three of your children are very active kids. I know you got a little baseball star who's doing very well for the post you put up. I always ask parents when I look at you service these children in school as a counselor, but then you have your own children. And sometimes we say, oh, you got to find a balance. And I think there never really is a balance you can find
Mhm.
between parenthood, work, and all the stuff we got going on. But just the joy of you as being a mother, just talk to us about that, how just on a daily basis, you are so much to so many people. You got your
Mhm.
own kids, you're a counselor, you're a wife, but then Courtney has to find time for her to just woos on, let go. How do you
Yeah.
just navigate through the daily life of being a mother, a wife, a counselor, all these different hats you wear? How do you, and if you have found balance, please let us know how to do it. And if you haven't, that's okay. But how
Yeah.
does Courtney handle it without having, and I know you have those moments you be like, I just want to tear my hair out. I'm tired of everybody. How do you maintain? Because sometimes people will look and be like, oh, look at her. She's smiling. She's doing this. Oh, life is so great. And behind the scenes, you're like, y'all don't know. I'm finna go crazy. I'm finna let
I'm
everybody
trying to tell
have
you.
it. How do you do that and yet just sit there with that demeanor like everything's great? So you ain't, if you could just give us a quick picture that this is how I'm able to balance all of this out.
Yeah. I will say it has gotten easier as my kids have gotten older. So
Mm,
thankfully,
point.
my kids are not, they don't require as much watching. I won't say attention, but um I'm not required to, sit and watch their every move, and I don't have to be as involved in their preparation and all of that stuff. So as they've got, because my like I said, my oldest son will be 21, my middle son is 15, my daughter is 12. So they know how to make sandwiches, they can operate the stove. My oldest son got his own car, and when he's home for breaks, he's toting them around, helping me with them. So it's gotten easier as they've gotten older. But I will say I sleep when I need to sleep. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't apologize about that. When I'm ready to go to school, I take a nap every day after work. Every day. Every single day. I come
Committed.
home and say, I am not even exaggerating. Because I talk all day and I problem solve all day. So when I get off, I'm fried. Like I
Yes.
can't do it. So I
Talk
just
about it.
need to come home and I just sleep for 2 hours. Sometimes it might be three. I don't know. But I sleep. That's what I need to do. And that's who I am. So I do that. And I will definitely say since I had approached turning 40, because I'll be 41 this year, I just knew I had to be more intentional about, like you said, taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
For almost 21 years, I've been taking care of children and my husband and other people's kids. And at this point, or I'll lose myself. So
Right.
I just started to be more intentional about taking care of me and taking time away. And so I started last year. I started doing what I wanted to do was take one solo self care trip a month, where I just pick some place to go for a weekend or a break or whatever, and I go there by myself. I took coloring books. I took like affirmation cards, a journal, and what else? I took puzzles, and I would go somewhere for a weekend by myself, free of children, free of a husband, and just do what I wanted to do. Whether it was sleep
Mm-hmm.
the whole time, whether it was do puzzles, whether it was do a nature walk. I went to Puerto Rico. That was amazing. But I just had to you have to make time for yourself, because nobody's going to give it to you. As a mom, a wife,
Absolutely.
a professional, nobody's going to give you the time for yourself. So you have to be intentional about taking it and making it your own. And so that is what I do now. And I've carried that on to doing, I don't necessarily do them every month, but I take time away from myself. It's summertime, so I'm not working. So I'm getting ready to get on the road right now when we finish this interview. I have to do things where I can be away so I can recharge. So when I'm back, I can be locked in. But again, I'm grateful that my kids don't require a lot of me anymore, to where I have to be so, focused on
Mm-hmm.
everything that they're doing. It really helps that I can kind of be a little bit more hands off when I can be, and it allows me to be more true to myself. So
Absolutely. And I think you just ended this interview just excellently, just wonderful what you just said. Because I agree with you. It gets easier as they get older. And
yes, thank God.
I'm all about learning how to take care of ourselves. I was just expressing that. I think to my kids that me and my wife, between our two families, and we've spent over 20 some years of our lives dedicated to y'all. You all are old
Mm,
enough now. And I told them I'm taking a step back
yep.
because I need to focus on me, my health, my mental. Me and your mom, we need to take some trips, do us.
Yeah.
You all are old enough now to where some things y'all gonna have to start figuring it out. It can't be
I told
us.
my oldest son, last spring break or winter break, we were at lunch and I told him, I got to start cutting this cord a little bit, son. Like, the things that you can do on your own, you got to start doing them on your own. Booking your own flights. I'll send you the money, but you can actually go online and buy a plane ticket, son. You can do that. You're capable enough to do that. You got to relinquish what you can to your
Mm-hmm.
kids as they get older and allow them to have that, and they need the experience and the exposure too, because I'm not going to be booking this boy's plane when he's 22. I'm not going to do that. You know, making sure that you take care of your own stuff at school. Now, call me when you need me. If you need some support, of course, but you got to start taking care of your own stuff. You push that to those kids when they get to the age where they can start doing those things. Listen, 'cause you're not gonna be in my
Mm-hmm.
basement for the rest of your life. You
Come
got to
on.
go. You got to go. You got to get up out of here. So I'm gonna let you be an individual. And again, that kind of goes back to what I said about my parents giving me the autonomy to kind of make those decisions on my own. So you choose what you want to do. I'm gonna support you, but I'm gonna push you at the same time. Get on about this house. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. You know what? We sound so much alike as parents, and I don't feel bad when I tell my kids they look at me crazy. You trying to I ain't trying to kick you out, but can't stay here
You
forever. You got to get out there eventually. And
got to go.
I cut that cord quick. I cut it real fast. Right around 18, I started. As soon as I hit that 18th birthday, snip, snip. They
Yes.
start teaching you about adulthood real fast.
Yeah,
Start learning
yeah.
about it. I get it cut. They always tell you, oh, they're trying to put you out. But eventually you
Mhm.
gotta face that world. And my
You do?
job is to prepare you. And if I let, because
Absolutely.
I think in today's time, statistically, they said more kids are staying at home now
Yeah.
because to me, we were that last generation where our parents pushed us to be
Yes.
adults. Some people say, oh, they push you too much, but I'm grateful for what I got from my mom.
Yes.
But now this next generation is more coddled because some parents feel like, oh, I shouldn't have been out so early, this and that. So you get kids at home. I told this one lady about one of my children being out. She's like, oh, my son's 30 and I can't get him out. Huh? 30? Working full time? You can't
Oh
get him
no.
out.
Oh no, ma'am. Oh no. What?
Oh. Once
See,
you
it's
start working,
different if they, because I had to go home a couple times, but I was there for like less than a year each time. Like, you're not about to just post up
right.
at 30. Nah, we're not doing that.
And I tell all my kids, if y'all get out there, stuff get bad for you. You need to come home. Now, I can see stuff getting bad for you, but if you realize, hey, it's rough out here, I need to come home, fine. I ain't finna open my door. So, oh yeah, just come home. You're having a hard time, because that's me helping you. I need you to realize you didn't
That is
listen, or something
right.
happened,
Right.
circumstances. Okay, but then what's your plan to get back out?
Right.
Because I don't want to look down the road 5 years. Why are you still here? Matter
I'm
of fact,
still here.
why I'm going to work and you laying on the couch eating a sandwich? That's a problem.
That part.
Somewhere we got a misunderstanding, but you
Mm-mm.
can't be 30 with a full-time job and me trying to figure out, man, I just can't get them out.
Oh,
Oh
I can't
no.
get them out.
You need to pack these bags for. I'm gonna show you something.
Let me listen.
I done been there. I told my kids once, I've been through life when I had to go. Now, me and my siblings, my mama, once we went out, that was it. You couldn't go back home. So we lived with each other because I got 3 older siblings and I have lived with all 3 of them when I went through some hard times. Because we didn't
Wow.
go back to mom. Mama whole thing was once you in, you can come visit, but you can't come stay. So we all stayed with each other. And there was one
Wow.
time in life when I was living in Texas, went through some stuff, was working, but going through some stuff in my past marriage to where I had to live out of a hotel for a while till I found a place.
Mm.
When you got a full-time job, there's other living arrangements besides my house. If it comes to that, because I always say when you got older kids, your older kids can pick up habits that may not align with your structure of your house. And I'm grown,
Yes.
I'm paying the mortgage or the rent, and you feel that you're grown. If you can't respect these rules, like if you in my house talking, well, I'm grown. Well, there's a top grown up
Then-
here. If you living with me, you ain't that grown. There's a
This,
problem.
this this is the same situation. That's why it's difficult to have young adult kids because, like you said, they have that freedom and stuff when they're away from your house. But when
Mm-hmm.
you in my house, it's a little bit different. So my son and I have
Yes.
had that conversation a few times, and you know, I told him, "Hey, you can come back if you want, but if you can't be under these instructions, then you need to find somewhere else you
Absolutely.
can spend your breaks. I love you,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yes.
I want to FaceTime you and all that, but you can't stay here if you're not going. We'll look at each other, but you can't stay here, son." So
Yes.
he got it together. Needless to say,
Wonderful. See, me and Courtney, we here with this. We got this. I know some of y'all might be listening to us out there and saying, "Oh, they're too harsh." And whatever. They ain't no. Everybody want to any real adult. You want to go out there and get your own, and
yeah,
you feel it's a thing of self-worthness to feel like, man, I got my own
absolutely.
house, my own stuff, and eventually, mom and daddy, I want to come to your house for dinner. Can we have Thanksgiving at your house? Maybe mom and
Uh,
dad, you don't want to be the host every year.
Right.
Can you come pick me up in your car? Where we going? I just want to go down the street. You got your own car. Well, think about all the years I took you right down the street just to the store. I'll pay it forward. I want some of those experiences with you. So if I get you out there and you do what
Yes.
you're doing, then let's come on. I want something. I ain't saying you got to take care of me as your parent, but I want to see you
Right.
with your own. I want to come to your house.
Right.
Maybe I'll buy you a piece of furniture or something. I don't want you laying on my ass forever. No, you got
Right.
to go. And that's why I told my kids I was hesitant that I said when I get a house, I'm hesitant to get a big house. Why? Can I make you think you can stay?
Well,
No,
come
it's me and your mama house. I'll sleep in every different room. Just I told them when you leave, I'm changing your room around. I just can't come back. I have a spot in the guest room or the basement for you, but I'm changing your room around. Why? Because I don't want you to think, well, I can just come back to my
Come
bed.
back.
I
Right.
tell my kids sometimes, stop saying mine, because you don't pay no bills here. I'm just allowing you to rent a space. I'm allowing you to talk on the phone, but this is
Right.
my cell phone. It is. Last time I checked, I paid a bill. You always
Hello.
gotta divide stuff of it. Talk about it, cause one day in your life you're going to be able to say it's mine. If you ain't
Correct.
paying for it, it ain't yours. We're just allowing you all
Correct. I'm just
to loan
allowing you
stuff.
this.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
all it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
We just
Yes.
trying to help y'all out a little bit. And I always tell my kids, if I make it uncomfortable for you, it'll make you go fast. They get so mad at me. You make
No,
fun of
that's true though. That's very true. My dad gave me a curfew when I graduated. I came back home with my son, who was 2. I got a whole 2-year-old and a degree, and he told me I had to be home by 12:30. I said, "Yeah, this ain't gonna work." So
talk
I
about
think
it.
I was there less than 6 months. I said, "Yeah, I got to get my own." It was
Talk.
no, I got to go. Mm-mm.
That's what I did when I graduated, baby. My mama tried to make it sweet for me. She's like, son, you can stay here. Your baby, just take your time. Don't rush to move out. And at that time, my stepfather was still living and we didn't have the best relationship. And I'm looking at him, he looking at me. I'm like, nah, yeah, mom. I love you. I know you got my back, but based off me and his history, I gotta go, mom. It
Yeah,
ain't son, you rushing. It's better than dealing with this. It may not be time for me to go, but you understand, as a grown man with a baby on the
yeah,
way, I
yeah.
got to go. I can't deal with this. And I had to figure it out. Yeah. Was I ready and prepared? Absolutely not. But you make certain choices in life. You got to do things. Hey, instead of sitting
Gotta
here being
pivot.
restricted by what y'all
Right.
putting in order, I gotta go. Cause sooner or later that grown up gonna rise in me. I'm grown too. Like I told all my kids, I wait for the day. I wait for the day when you in my house eating my food, spending up my bills, my water, my gas, and you look at me in the face and say I'm grown too. And I'm gonna show you the other side of that door. Hand me your key too. Since you so grown, I wish the day. That's why we ain't gonna be here when we get older. Okay, and I
Great.
and I went through that, but I tell them all the time, if I could go back and do it over, I would have done it differently.
Yeah.
Because I went out there and we made it. We look at ourselves now, but somewhere in that 18 to about 25 range, we look and say, I would have done some stuff
Could have done
differently if
something
I could have do
different.
it over. Because
Absolutely.
it wouldn't have been so difficult for me if I would have made some different
Absolutely.
choices, if I would have listened somewhere. And so now we're trying to raise the next generation of little us's, little
Mhm.
us, and trying to teach them to do different and make some better choices. But
Right.
we can have a whole nother conversation about this generation and their softness, their tenderness.
Oh,
They can't take
you
what
gonna have to
we
call
took.
me back for that one because I got a lot to say about that one. Ooh, Lord.
we all do. So,
Ooh.
Courtney, I want to thank you again for this interview. Thank you for taking the time to come on a podcast. I hope everyone that hears it, y'all know New Beginnings Podcast with Jay Jackson, my YouTube, Spotify podcast. Please, I need y'all to like, follow, subscribe. Please share this with other people. Courtney has shared with us her life, some wisdom, giving us some things that we can build on about family, motherhood, overcoming adversity, different situations in life, conflict. And pretty much no matter what you face, if you put forth the effort and do it, and it will definitely keep in your faith, and by the grace of God, you can overcome it. Just got to take that
Absolutely.
first step and do it. So I appreciate you, ma'am. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, hey, y'all know what it is. New Beginnings Podcast with Jay Jackson. See y'all next time.